Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Tutorials. In this video we are going to make a solid granny square, and it is going to be, my granny square is going to be big enough to be the back of these 4 squares in its cushion format. So when I'm making it, obviously I'll get to about the 5th, 6th, 7th round, and if you're making smaller granny squares, well then you can stop there, but I'll be completing many more rounds than that until I get to about 35 centimeters in width and height. These are the colours I'm going to be using, so I'm going to be changing colours every couple of rounds. So hopefully that will mean that I use them all at about the same rate. My daughter chose these colours and they are absolutely beautiful, and in this pattern as well. She wants this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. So I'm going to be using a 4.5mm hook. And the reason I'm going to be using a 4.5mm, this is an Aran yarn, so you know it's roughly a 10 ply, but it's not a big 10 ply. It's really quite a thin yarn. So the reason I am using this 4.5mm hook is because I have used the 4.5mm for the rainbow popcorn stitch squares. So I just want to keep that consistent across all the squares. So my first colour is going to be this gorgeous pale lilac. Now to start a to start a solid granny square, we need a slip knot on the hook, and essentially you can create a ring by chaining 3 or 4 and then popping all your stitches into that ring, chaining your number of course, and then slip stitching to the first chain to create the ring. Or you can chain 3 and put all your stitches into the first chain to create a ring, essentially that way. But you will probably end up with a reasonable size hole in the middle, maybe a couple of millimeters across. And because this is a cushion, I really want to minimize holes as much as I possibly can. So for the same reason, I'm actually only going to be chaining 1 in the corners as well. Now I've just said that we'll need a slip knot on the hook, but we won't actually. I'm going to make a magic ring. Oh, I'm so confusing. I'm terribly sorry. All right, so a magic ring is really great in your toolkit, and if you followed the rainbow popcorn stitch square, then you will have made it probably already. You may be familiar with it, and that's fantastic, but the way you do it, the way you make it, is just lay the tail across your hand like that, hang on to it, and then bring the working yarn up and over to make an X on the top of your hand. Then bring the hook in and go under that first strand of yarn and grab the one at the back, which is your working yarn, and turn the hook so it's facing up and it has a loop. And then grab the working yarn again and pass that through the loop like so. And that is your magic circle, and it's a really stable one because we've made that chain. So from here, excuse me, because I would normally chain 3 to get to the height of a double crochet or a triple crochet if you're in the UK, I'm going to actually only chain 2 because I've already chained 1. So then I'm going to put 2 more double crochets into that ring and chain 1 for my corner. And the center of the solid granny square is 4 sets of these, so 4 sets of 3 double crochets in a cluster. So I'll put in my next set. That's 1, 2, and 3, and chain 1 for my corner, and 1, 2, and 3 for my third set. So you can chain 2, and I guess most of the patterns will actually tell you to chain 2, and you may find that when you chain 1, your square doesn't exactly sit 100% flat, and that may be because of this only chain 1 in between the clusters. So feel free to chain 2 in between your clusters for the corners, but for this I'm going to only chain 1 because I don't want the holes, and when I sew the giant square onto the back of the cushion, or onto the back of my other giant square created from my 4 rainbow popcorn squares, it will sit perfectly fine anyway. So after your 4th cluster of 3 double crochet, chain 1, and then just pull your ring closed and slip stitch to the top of that initial chain that you made in the beginning. If I could get in there. And that's a lovely little square with these chain 1 spaces. So you can slip stitch across to be in the corner. Other squares, other patterns will just tell you to chain 3 from here, and that is a really effective way of making the square. But what tends to happen is every time you chain up to the next level, you tend to get a line of quite visible chains up that square. So I tend to really kind of not like that. So what I tend to do is just turn my work and slip stitch into that corner position. And then I'm in that position to chain 3 in the corner and pop in another double crochet, a chain 1, and 2 more double crochet. And the way the solid granny square works is you actually then crochet into the top of each of these stitches. Now, because I'm on the wrong side, the V's are actually kind of going off onto this side. So I'll just need to look where my position is for crocheting into the top of those stitches. And that is the top of my first stitch there. So I'm going to crochet a double crochet into that one, and then into the second, under the V, into the second, and into the third, popping the hook in under that V at the top of that stitch. So every round you'll always crochet into the top of every crochet on that side. So every stitch rather on that side, and then put in your corner, which is always 2 double crochet, a chain, in some cases chain 2, in my case chain 1, and another 2 double crochets. And this first stitch you will have to kind of scooch the other stitches over to find that position to actually get in. So yarn over and get in under. Doesn't want to play the game, does it? Get in under that V of that stitch and put in a double crochet. And in the next one, a double crochet, and then in the final stitch under the V and a double crochet. And one of the things that quite often confuses beginners with this stitch is that they don't remember to put in the corner stitches, or all the corner stitches, and they also maybe don't remember to crochet into every stitch around. So yes, I had chained one, because I'm distracting myself. Chain 1 and put in the other 2 stitches. 2. And make sure you put in a double crochet into each of those stitches from the previous round. 2 and 3. And in this round, it is only 3 stitches. The count on each, excuse me, the count on each side, the stitch count on each side actually increases every round by 4 stitches. So, and that's because of these 2 stitches that we put in on the corner. So I'm putting in 2 more corner stitches here, and they then contribute to the stitch count on this side. So what has gone from 3 stitches here has now increased by 4. So this next round is a round of 7 stitches. And that happens every round. It increases by 4. So if you're not increasing every round by 4, then something's going wrong. And the last stitch in this round goes right in there. And then we just slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 that we did in the beginning. And I am going to tie off, I'm going to fasten off this round. If you're not changing colour, I would probably suggest simply turning this round and positioning yourself in the corner and slip stitching into the corner, and then probably just slip stitch into the corner for each other round. But because I'm changing colours, I'm going to attach in the corner. And my next colour is this tea rose colour. So essentially all I'm going to do is pop a slip knot on the hook, and select a corner. Now, because I've crocheted from this side on this round, on this second round here, this, when I turn to here, is actually the wrong side. But it doesn't make a whole heap of difference because of the way this pattern works. I'm just going to pop that straight, slip stitch straight into that corner position. And this cotton just likes to separate and become all grabby with itself. So just slip stitch into that corner position, and then chain 3 from there, and put in another double crochet in that corner, a chain 1 and 2 more double crochets. Now, like last round, I need to crochet into the top of every stitch in this round, and I know that there were 7 stitches in that round. So I'm just going to crochet into that one, and this one that I slip stitched or fastened off into can be a little bit tricky to get in, but is okay. And then the next one, that's 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, and then I'm at my corner. So I'm going to put in 2 double crochets, a chain 1 and 2 more double crochets. So you can see that now I've added 2 double crochets in this corner on this side. These ones belong to this side. In this corner and in this corner here, I've now increased from 7 to 11 stitches on that side. So next time I'll be crocheting into 11 stitches. And then I just double crochet into every stitch along this side. Four, 5, 6 and 7, and I'm at my corner, and pop in that corner, which is 2 double crochet, not supposed to lose all your loops, but that's the way life happens sometimes. 2 double crochet, a chain 1 and 2 more double crochet. And so then for this side, I'm simply doing the same thing, crocheting 7 double crochets into the tops of each of these stitches along that side. 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, and then once again I'm at my corner. 2 double crochet, a chain 1 and 2 more double crochet. Seven stitches along this side in the tops of each of those stitches. Three, 4, 5, 6, and this one wants to hide because that's where I attached, and 7. So you can see that it is, despite the fact that there is only, ignore all these tails, despite the fact that there is only 1 stitch in each of these corners, it is still a very square square. And then just slip stitch to the top of that chain 3. Now I'm not going to turn my work this round, I'm just going to slip stitch into that corner position. The only thing that's wrong with slip stitching into the corner position, the only thing that makes it maybe a little bit you don't want to do it, is that these stitches can then be quite hard to get into when you come back and crochet into them for this round. But it's certainly doable. You can get into them even though there's a slip stitch already in there. So then we chain 3 in the corner and put in our second double crochet for the corner, chain 1 and 2 more double crochet. And again, the corners are going to increase each side by 4. So we've just done a row of 11 stitches. This round will be a round of 15 in each side. So then we need to crochet into that very corner stitch, don't forget him, and into the top of each stitch along. Seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, and we're at our corner. So put in those 2 double crochets, the chain 1 and 2 more double crochets. You can see that even, actually I'll bring it up rather than zooming in. You can see that even though I've only chained 1 in each of these corners, those holes are still reasonably sized, and that's probably as big as I'd want them for the cushion that I'm intending to make. So if you do have a chain 2 there, the holes will be a little bit bigger. There are a lot of people who like these squares because they are really quite minimal with holes, but chaining 1 tends to really reduce those holes as well. So just double crocheting into the top of each stitch along this side now. And just every stitch gets a double crochet until we get to the corner, when we make our corner with 2 double crochet, a chain 1 and 2 double crochet. It really is as simple as that. Corner, chain 1, 2 more double crochet. Remember, when you do your corner, you still have to crochet into this stitch here, so kind of move it over so you can find that position to crochet into, otherwise you'll forget that stitch. And that is one of the places where your count can go completely wrong. Now, you don't really have to count, as long as you know that you are putting 2 stitches in each corner and you're crocheting into that corner stitch each time you come to it in the following round, then you'll be absolutely fine. But if you do find that for some reason it's a bit wonky or something looks a bit wrong, it's probably that you've forgotten a stitch in the corner, or you've forgotten to crochet into one of those corner stitches. And here we are in our corner again. 2 double crochet, a chain 1 and 2 more double crochet. Move that over so you can get into this stitch here. And this is our last side in this round, and then I'll be changing colour. And these are the stitches that I slip stitched into, so they are going to be a little bit tough. But there we go, in one. and into that one, and then slip stitch into the top of that chain 3. And that is what our square looks like at the moment. Of course, you can block these to make them sit in a much more logical square shape, but they're fine the way they are too. Certainly acrylics will actually sit probably a little bit neater than the cottons, because the cottons tend to, you can see every aspect of every stitch. Okay, so I've fastened off because I'm changing colour. If you're not changing colour, then you would just slip stitch into the corner over here, ready for the next round. But I'm going to be bringing in this marine blue, which is a fantastic kind of blue green, and just popping a slip knot on the hook and slip stitching into, slip stitching into any corner, and then chaining 3, 1, 2, 3, which counts as a double crochet, and putting in my second double crochet for that side of the corner, a chain 1 and 2 more double crochet, and then always remember to crochet the yarn over first, Kim, crochet into this stitch here and crochet along in every stitch until I get to the corner where I'll put in my next corner. Into this stitch, which is my second last stitch before the corner, and the final stitch before the corner, and then pop in my 2 double crochets, a chain 1 and 2 more double crochets for the corner. So I can meet you, excuse me, at the end of this round. Remember to move this across so you can get into this stitch that tries to hide here. Put 2 double crochets, a chain 1 or chain 2 if that's what you're doing, into your corner, and crochet into every stitch around, and I'll meet you back at the end of this round. Okay, so I'm at the end of this round, and I just need to slip stitch to the top of this chain from the beginning of the round, and that is the end of that round. Now realistically, if you were just making a normal granny square, you probably wouldn't go for terribly many more rounds. At the moment I've got, what's this, 5 rounds. Add another round, it's 6. That probably would be the normal size for a granny square. So I'll pop this round in and chain 3 for the corner, put in the other double crochet, chain 1, 2 more double crochets. Now remember, you're always moving this across so you can get access to the top of that first stitch, and then just double crocheting into every stitch across. So the only place you're really going to go wrong, if you go wrong, is in those corners. It's where the corners sort of start that tend to make people throw their count off. But if you remember that every round increases by 4 stitches on every side, so every side increases by 4 stitches per round, then you can't go wrong. Once we've finished this round, I'll meet you back and you can fasten off, or you can continue to make a big square like I will be. Okay, so this is the square after the end of the 6th round, and as you can see, it's quite a large square now. So if you were making a blanket with multiple squares, then this would probably be the size you would be looking at. I need my square to be a good, probably another at least 6 rounds larger to be able to cover the back of my giant square. So I'm going to keep going. If you're finishing now, of course, you would just slip stitch to the top of that chain the way we have every round and tie off there. And if you find that your square's not sitting flat, then make sure you count all your stitches. Remember that 4 stitch increase per side. And if you're still not completely happy with the straightness of your square, which frequently people aren't, then you can block it by setting it out on a board and pinning all the sides out to square. And of course, with cotton, it really does tend to benefit from that. But mine's going to be a bit plump anyway because it's going to be the back of a cushion, so it's no big deal for me. I'm going to introduce this gorgeous washed teal colour to the rounds now, but I'm going to leave you to it. I do hope you make the solid granny square, whether you make it with 2 chains in the corner or 1, doesn't really matter. As long as you get your stitch count right, you're good to go. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please hit the like button and remember to subscribe to the channel because I frequently upload new and interesting crochet projects and I'd love to chat with you online. Okay, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.